Hi, welcome to What the Flick. Christy and Alonzo and Ben and Matt. We are all here. We're going to talk about 20th Century Women, the latest from Mike Mills, who you are describing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So this is, if Beginners was Mike Mills' movie about his relationship with his father later in his father's life, this is about growing up with his mother, who here is played by Annette Bening. And she's a woman who has pretty much sort of lived the century. She went to work in a factory during World War II, along with a lot of other American women, and is now grappling with the changing times of the 1970s and raising a kid and dealing with potential love interests and borders and all kinds of things. I think this movie's great. Take a look.
We've always believed that the days of our children would be better than our own. But we've discovered that owning things and consuming things does not satisfy our longing for meaning.
Wow. He is so screwed. It's over for him.
I thought that was beautiful.
You saw this?
Yeah. So I didn't think it was great.
Okay.
And I thought there were.
Explain
great,
yourself.
I will
What's wrong
not.
with you, Ben?
I will not be challenged in this way.
You sound so sad about it.
Well, because I liked so many parts of it,
Okay.
but I had a degree of apathy at the end and eagerness for a conclusion.
I myself have a degree in apathy.
You might-
With a minor
not
in
that I
Russian
care.
literature.
There were times when I thought the voiceover narration in it was excellent, and then times maybe I liked the voiceover narration. I certainly liked it. It plays a very significant role. It changes first of all, which is interesting for all the idea. The story is set in the bulk of it in 70. Well, all of it in 79, but they are constantly referring. You feel like you got much more than 1979 because they are referring often to other times.
Right.
They flash forward.
They flash, but I mean,
And back.
They have the perspective of
right, but it's super
present
brief.
day.
Those flashes. You don't really. There aren't scenes so much set there as like 2 seconds of a montage, but that gives you a glimpse, right? A little dream. But Annette Bening lives in a house, and she's raising her 15-year-old son, and because she is struggling, she has 2 boarders, right? Billy Crudup and Greta Gerwig.
Right.
And then Elle Fanning, who's a couple years ahead of her son, also comes over all the time, and they're all sort of involved in some way. She's eager to have other people help raise her kid, not because she wants to go off and date, but because she sort of thinks he needs it. So to me, it's about this 15-year-old boy oddly raised by 3 women, because Billy Crudup is ends up being the least significant contributor to his life. And it seems like the movie's it's about Annette Bening and him, Jamie, right, the son. I thought more than anybody else.
I mean, it's an ensemble. It's about all of them. It's about how they affect him, but how they also all affect each other.
That's what I mean, right.
And they're all evolving together and changing each other for better mostly, and not so much for worse. I can see why you were a little underwhelmed by it, because it does kind of meander, and you don't really know where it's going. I like that you don't know where it's going. There's no formula to this at all.
No.
Aside from its narrative structure, like there are chapters for each person. You get things from their perspective. That's the only thing that makes it kind of a formula, but you cannot predict where events will go in this formula. And as you mentioned, it jumps around in time quite a bit. I liked it a lot. It feels really lived in. It feels really tactile. You get a definite sense of place here. They're all really distinctly drawn characters. None of them are types.
Yeah.
They teeter on the edge of being types, or so you think. At first I was watching it and I thought of Annette Bening in Running with Scissors. She was that kind of unconventional mom, although that
Right.
mom is crazier and much
Yes. Less
more
stable.
unstable. Yeah, this one is, but this one's free-spirited like that and unconventional.
I don't know. We grew up in the 70s. I find that period really kind of fascinating, and I'm surprised there aren't more movies about growing up in that period, because it was such a time of upheaval and people weren't quite sure what to hang on to from these sort of established mores and where to branch out into new places. You get like The Ice Storm. There's a few movies that have tackled it, but I'm surprised there aren't more. I loved it as this kind of snapshot of a period where even the adults were sort of like, I guess this is what we should do. I don't know. I like who plays the son?
I'm gonna look it up.
Lucas something. He has a Lucas
Jade Zumann.
Lucas Jade Zumann.
I liked him a lot. He
he's
felt
really
very
good.
sort of just interestingly reactive and empathetic to things. I thought the sort of sidebars where you kind of find out more about where the Greta Gerwig character is coming from and where the Elle Fanning character is coming from. I don't know. I found them all really interesting, and it felt to me
I knew
like
when I talked about it.
like it accumulated into something. I mean, there's these moments, and along the way, you don't know what it is you're seeing or where this is going to go. But by the end of it, I felt like I'd seen something. I felt like I had seen the sum total of this experience of growing up with these women, of who the women were themselves, and not just how they existed in terms of this kid. I found this movie really satisfying.
It sneaks up on you, I think, in that way. That when you're watching it, you're like, okay, here's a moment, and here's a moment, here's a moment, and they're all kind of lovely. And by the end, you're like,
Yes.
I get it.
But to me, like, and as I just said, whispered to Matt, like I knew this was going to happen. I knew when I talked about it, I would like this more, because it requires some engagement. It's a hard movie to see as a screener by yourself.
That's how I watched it.
Well, I mean, same here. We'll get to Tony Erdmann momently.
That's an interesting. But I mean, like, I just wanted to have a conversation about it afterwards, and I was talking to my wife about it, and she was not having it. She was so tired, and she wanted to see it
because she's raising your child.
So because even though I don't think there's a big at the end, I don't care. I know you're not saying you need it either.
No.
But like, if you when you said there's a moment and a nice moment and a nice moment and a nice moment, like that's enough for me. And there were, and really mostly to me, Greta Gerwig went in a totally different direction than you sort of thought. You say they almost become types, but they never do.
You think they might be types at the beginning, is
right?
my
And then they're not.
suggestion,
Right,
and
and
then
then
they
you get to know them
develop
better.
she's the one who
more,
seemed most to me like she was going to be a type, but she was not. You're right, none of them were, but she in particular wasn't. And I always like her. It's impossible not to like her. You can't like things on a screen and not like Greta Gerwig.
What an interesting couple of weeks it is for between this and Jackie.
True.
Right.
Totally different roles that both are different from what we know.
And we
for
just
TV.
reviewed Live by Night, so
Elle Fanning.
Elle Fanning too. Very different characters. She's really really talented.
Billy Crudup also in Jackie.
Billy Crudup
Also
also.
in this.
That's right.
There you go.
There's 4 actors in Hollywood. Everybody else go home.
So
Annette Bening also in Rules Don't Apply.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the thing about Annette Bening is there are whatever, if there are 5 better actresses, there are only 5, and I don't think there are 5. So I just don't. She's really good. It's really complicated. She is closer to staying who she is in the beginning, but there's a frustration you feel with that to some extent. At least I did. Like, you want her to have this perfect growth, right? In a sense, I'm glad as we talk about it that she didn't. But I'm like, do the movie thing where you change dramatically, right? But she never does.
I don't know that I've seen a character like her in a movie maybe ever.
Yeah.
I mean, just because again, that's such an interesting period where if you were a young woman who's a pre-boomer, so you came of age during World War II, and that's such a fascinating moment where the men were gone, the women had to go and take these service jobs, and they worked outside of the home for the first time, and they were independent, and so then the transition back into, oh no, the men are all home now, you go back to the kitchen, lady, and then to go from that through into the 60s and 70s and all of that period, and trying to be tuned into what was happening there and trying to raise a kid in that period, but still trying to sort of hold on to how you were raised and what you grew up with. That's just such a fascinating arc, and she gets just every drop of what's in there.
There was some personal resonances, I think, because she's born in 1924, the character. My mom was born in 1925. She had her son at 40, and my mom had me at 42.
My mom was 40 when I was born.
So there's so this kid was like 3 years older than you and I are. So there were things I recognized from my mother in this, but she was why I expected change is that she was so much more open. She was my mom's not going to watch this, much better mother, and she kept trying to be a different kind of mom, right? She encouraging other people to raise her kid, so he'd get other voices because his father wasn't around, and and the idea of being raised by women, you know, of a boy,
Yeah,
sort
of a 15-year-old kid being encouraged to read Our Bodies Ourselves.
Right, totally. And then she, but so you expect this dramatic moment where she becomes like a 21st century mom, but it doesn't quite happen. Like she tries, but she can't escape the fact that she was ultimately born in 1924, and there are certain kinds of behavior.
But it's a loving portrait.
No, totally, it's loving.
literal.
It's loving. It's like you see, because she's such a great actress, when there are moments when she reverts back to being of her own time, and you feel like, oh, she wants to
Be
share,
with it.
right? She wants to be like the Americans character. She wants to
Yeah.
be an est. She wants
Right.
to talk about her feelings, but that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
It's a very showy role, but not in an obvious way
she's
ever.
great. She's so great.
Okay, so what are your numbers then, my friends?
So it's gonna be easy, but I'm gonna pull it up to just 7.4, and then that'll raise that by 0.2.
8.5. It was not in my top 10, but it was absolutely a runner-up and a movie I think people should totally see.
Okay, I'm saying 7.8, so our number is now a 7.9?
That's right.
Okay, 7.9, and it's very high on the tomato
Yes,
meter.
it's 92% on the tomato meter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably low because
right.
we continue to talk about it.
We're very persuasive.
And
You
I
are. But it's funny. After the movie, I was like, oh, this would be helped right now by just a 6-minute conversation. Like I
text me.
Give us a call. I was going to say, we're always available to you.
Operators are standing by. I think I like this one better than Beginners. So
I did not like it better than Beginners.
Okay.
But I like them both. Like
All right.
you know, so
So good on you, Mike Mills.
Yeah,
All
good
right,
on you,
and
Mike
it's out now where? Somewhere?
probably limited. A lot of the movies we're talking about are sort of Christmas Day releases for LA and New York just to get into the Oscar deadline, and then they'll be popping up elsewhere
suck it,
starting in
Midwest.
January. Sorry.
You'll see it soon, though. Bye.